on the interview now, and I'm going to be quiet, and we'll have a listen to an interview we did the weekend with carlgnash. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Backstage with Bucky, and I am Bucky Dirtle. I'm coming to you live from my shed, and we have a very special guest here today. We have carlgnash. Hello, Carl.
Hello, Bucky. Hello, everyone out there in Radioland. Happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you for sure. It's a real honor to have you. It's an honor to have you. I gotta tell you, I'm a Twitter. I'm a Twitter here in my shed. I have to be honest, because from my very first days, I came on Steam It. I saw this guy carlgnash, and I said, "That is one cool guy, and that is one cool beard."
Bucky, I hate to tell you, I'm going to disappoint you. I'll have to send you a picture of what my face looks like now because the beard is no more.
Really? Oh wow! I haven't seen anything lately. Oh wow! Well, you know what? I'm disappointed, but I'm impressed with your fortitude to
Yeah,
be able be able to cut off a big beard like that.
everything comes and goes in a cycle, and it was about a year and a half worth of growth, and you don't win a prize for having a beard for 2 or 3 years. I think a year and a half was long enough.
Yeah, I think so. That's fair.
And I still have a beard. I shouldn't say that the beard is gone. I have a beard. It is just about a quarter of an inch long. And if you knew me previously,
Yeah.
it was a little bit longer than a quarter of an inch.
Well, we did a tune with Stick Champion there a while back, you and I, and your beard was definitely interfering with definitely the A string, E string, possibly the D. It was reaching down that far. So, I was kind of hoping for it to get down to the B string, but hey, you know what? That's it. Maybe next round of beard growing. Well,
Yeah.
there's beard envy going on for sure. I was going to ask you about some beard upkeeping in this show, but I guess I'll have to wait for another 6 or 8 months, until it grows back a bit. My favorite line that I saw with you about the beard was you put out something from a long time ago. Maybe it was a photo or something you had a long time ago, and you put in the caption, "Now with 500% more beard."
Yeah, that was a rough approximation. The beard measuring software is sadly lacking.
Yeah,
I tried out one of these laser beard finders from the sporting goods store, and I tell you, it just was not calibrated for something as beardly as I had.
I got you. My nephew he's a carpenter, and he has serious beard action going on. I'm gonna say it was probably pretty close to where yours was like a little while ago, and I don't know how he works. He must get caught in the saw. And get like tangled up in like the drill press and things like that must be a hazard, occupational.
Bucky, I started tucking my beard into my shirt, sort like into the neck of my
Yeah.
shirt, and this was almost like the impetus for me cutting this off because I was doing this at dinner, and my wife Emma, who's also on here, my wife Emma is a Dill Emma on here, Dillemma.
Okay.
So my wife looked over at me and she just laughs and she says, like, okay, you could just cut your beard off. And I
Yeah.
kind of looked down at what was going on and I said, okay, you know what? I can't take a drink of water. I can't eat some food without having to think about this. Maybe it is time to
Yeah.
go back to a little more reasonable beard.
Yeah. Well, my father had a big handlebar mustache. Like he doesn't have a mustache now, but he had a big handlebar. I'm like serious job, and he would wax it all the time. He had all this mustache wax and the little combs and stuff, and he would take care of it. And it was quite the piece of equipment. It was face furniture for sure. But when he got a little older, like when he got in his I don't know mid-50s or so, like he was turning pretty gray, and his mustache started turning really gray, and he wasn't into it. So like he tried dyeing it for a little bit, and then he said, nah, enough of that. So then he shaved it off. But he had that serious stash for I'd say 20 years, a big handlebar. So it was pretty cool. I toyed with the idea of growing one, but I just haven't got the patience for the maintenance. Now, it's funny. This is a backstage of something show, but we're backstage barbershop here. This is interesting backstage barbershop. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new show. This is a new show on the PAL Discord. It's called Backstage at the Barbershop. I have one more thing to tell you. Well, one story that I have to tell you. Well, when I try to shave, every day or so, every couple of days, but I shave with a straight razor. Now, I don't know if many of our listeners out there have enjoyed the straight razor shave, but I'd encourage you. It's good stuff. It keeps the blood flowing, even when you're not cutting yourself. That's good stuff. You have to. The one thing I say about the shaving with a straight razor is that you have to keep your mind on it. You have to be there at the time. There's no being distracted. So it's my time when I shave my straight razor. I know if I got my mind anywhere else, forget about it. I may die. So anyway, there you go. So
All right.
So listen, this is the backstage. We'll leave the barbershop and let's go to I don't know, maybe music store or maybe a concert hall or something. So I hear you play a little music. Is that right? Is that true?
Yeah, I would describe myself as a musician first and foremost. Really, before I would use almost any other descriptor.
Okay.
I always have music going on in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether or not I'm playing music, if I'm doing something that involves getting my heart rate up,
Mm-hmm.
working outside, walking, hiking, really doing anything, I can guarantee you that there will be a beat going on in my head and a melody going on in my head, and then it's just a matter of whether or not I'm expressing it through a whistle or a vocal.
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not I am, you can rest assured that the Carl radio station is blasting inside my head, 100% on 24/7. Never need to worry about it going off air, which is a blessing and a curse. But it's just a part of my life. It's just as natural as breathing to me. I literally shape my breathing patterns to rhythm as I'm doing my day-to-day life.
That's very exciting. That's very exciting. I've heard people say that sort of thing before. That's really interesting. So if you're walking along, are you walking to the step of a beat that's in your head?
Sure. So right now I've got a kind of just kind of like a chugging along. We're just kind of rolling through this radio show. If I was getting my heart rate up and going, maybe it would kind of come on to be like a little bit more of a dum bum 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 bum. So I've always got something going on in here. Uh,
Excellent.
Now, as far as instruments, guitar is definitely my main axe.
Uh-huh.
And some years back, I did a lot of multi-track recording. And so I do have a collection of many instruments, but I have actually let the multi-track recording kind of slip away, and I haven't done it in some years. And so really most of my instruments are just hanging up on the wall. I've got a huge collection of stringed instruments and percussion instruments and
Mm-hmm.
some woodwinds that I used to add
Yeah.
layers over my music.
Yeah.
I can't claim to be a master of any of them, but I can pick them up and make noise with them and add a layer, a textural layer to a song if I needed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But guitar and keyboards are really my main acts.
Yeah.
I do have an upright piano, not in this room. Um, and then guitar, if I'm going to just pick up something to play, it'll be my guitar. I have a beautiful Gretsch acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
That's my main axe, and I have a couple others that I keep in different tunings.
Mm-hmm.
My standard alternate tuning, if you want to call it that, is D-A-D-E-A-D, which is like a D second, D suspended second.
Mm-hmm.
Love that tuning. And then I do a fair amount of dadgad and
Mm-hmm.
also some D major. So those are like the four main, and standard would be the four tunings that I spend the most time in.
Okay.
And I spent some years only playing in D-A-D-E-A-D, where that was my main tuning, and I probably have maybe 50, 60 songs written in that tuning.
Oh, wow.
I've come back to standard tuning for the last couple years, so now I've been kind of exploring some almost more traditional and folk style
Mm-hmm.
finger picking patterns and melody lines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then also I do have a loop machine, which I do have set up here, and we might get a little bit of looping in here today.
Yeah.
And when I came to fatherhood relatively late in my life, my oldest, who goes by Thing One here on Steam It, I was 35 when my oldest was born,
Mm-hmm.
and I quickly realized that as a stay-at-home dad, it was a lot harder to play guitar when you're holding a baby than you might think.
Yes.
but I could hold him and sing into the microphone just fine. So I went through a couple years, these last few years, where I really wasn't playing guitar as much, and my primary songwriting vehicle was actually the loop machine and just doing a cappella
Okay.
vocal looping,
Mm-hmm.
and written just hundreds of songs over the last few years that way. And it actually was really liberating to me, to not have to come up with a guitar part. Melody lines pop into my head like nothing as far
Mm-hmm.
as a vocal or a whistle part.
Mm-hmm.
And just having this equipment always set up in my house, as soon as a melody line would pop into my head, I'm doing dishes or whatever, and I'm all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I like whatever melody line is going on in my head. I'll just
Mm-hmm.
run into the other room, turn on the loop machine, lay that melody line down real quick and let that loop, and then I'll sing harmony parts over it and lyrics. And so that's been a really neat songwriting vehicle for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really interesting. And the you mentioned to me a while ago that you had, I don't know, like 1,200 songs or something like that that you'd written that you created yourself. That's incredible. I mean, that's such an output. That's amazing.
Yeah, I do think it's over 1,000. I don't have an actual count.
Sure. Yeah.
I can look at different periods of songwriting periods and say, well, here's 100 or 200 songs here, here's 100
Yeah.
songs there,
Wow.
and get a general sense.
Well,
Uh,
it's amazing that it's really great that you're able to capture those songs, because there's so many people out there that are very talented musicians and very talented creators that create things and then they just let it go. I mean, Beethoven was an example of that, because Beethoven wrote loads and loads of stuff that he just used to like wrap up fish and throw away, and it got burned in the fire. He just didn't keep it. I'm talking about sheet music with him, but the fact that you're able to keep your material, recordings or whatever. I was going to ask you as well, when you actually create one of your pieces, one of your songs or your melodies or whatever that is, like, how do you keep it? Do you keep it as like an audio recording? Do you write anything down? Do you write down the lyrics? Do you write down the notation? Like, what do you do to keep it?
sure. So first off, I'll have to say that I apparently share this in common with Beethoven, that I have let hundreds and hundreds just slip
Mm-hmm.
away to the
Sure.
fish.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Bird cage, in the bird cage.
yeah, but I don't feel like it's letting them go so much. It's more like letting them return to the primordial ooze. They're still bubbling
Yeah,
away,
that's right.
and a bit of them may come out in another song. And
Sure.
sometimes a fragment of lyric or a fragment of melody or a fragment of rhythm will pop back up, and I'm like, oh, hey, that's an old friend. I think that was
Yeah,
part of a song that I wrote when
that's
I was
right.
in high school.
Yeah.
So they're not, it's all a part of a journey of growth as
Yeah.
a person and as a musician, and there isn't any such thing as losing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer that I'm a different person right now than I was even a few minutes ago, and I'm certainly a different person than I was a month ago or a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about where you're going and how you build upon where you've been.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, so, first and foremost, I certainly do let some of them just slip away. Uh, when I'm writing, what I tend to do, I've made an intentional decision to not take myself off of junk mailing lists, because my favorite thing to write lyrics on is on the back of one of these stiffer envelopes that junk mail comes in.
Yeah.
I don't open the junk mail, I just flip it over, and it's like the perfect size for me to write a song on.
Okay.
I don't, it's stiff enough that I can hold it in my hand while I'm standing in front of the mic and write on it. There's something liberating about knowing that it's just a piece of junk that's this flotsam floating around in the universe that to everybody else is just this thing to curse or to get rid of. And to me, it's the canvas that I'm going to paint a song on. Something about that appeals to me. So
Wow.
I have baskets full of junk mail envelopes, unopened,
Yeah.
with my lyrics on it. And a part of me thinks, maybe some future musical anthropologist will find this and just find it absolutely fascinating to be able to correlate not just, the song lyrics, but also what kind of junk mail I was receiving at the time.
Wow.
What a funny window
Yeah.
into
Oh
into
yeah.
society to have the combination of this credit offer or insurance offer or whatever the case might be, and
Yeah,
and
that's
then
it.
the song that was written on it.
Well, would really that's really interesting. I never heard that before. That's fascinating. I think that the whatever the junk mail that you have in your hand at the time must definitely affect what you write. I mean, if you're writing on an insurance offer, It's got to be in there somewhere. It's got to be in. It's got to be in your brain somewhere, kicking around. Insurance company.
Exactly. Well, and then the other great thing about it is junk mail's always coming, so these things are always popping up,
Yeah.
and it just is like a little creative spur for me. I'm like, I've got a few of these things sitting here on my printer right now. I better fill them up with songs.
Yeah. Well, it's great recycling too. Maybe that's what
Yep.
we need to do to solve the recycling problem of the world. Is everybody needs to write music or write poetry on the back of the junk. I like it. Now I get a
Now,
lot. I get a lot of email junk. How would you do that? I wonder.
yeah,
No, no,
that's
no.
I have not figured out a way to do anything creative with that, so
Uh,
I'll let you know if I get that figured out.
there you go.
Um, for a little while, I was just turning on my camera and recording like a snippet of audio that way.
Hmm.
And I do have just hard drives full. I have multiple 3 terabyte hard drives that are just full of audio and video and pictures. But ultimately, I've realized that yes, they may be archived, but I'm never going to be able to find anything in there.
No.
And the
Yeah.
majority of these I never come back to.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing since I got this loop machine, which is also it's an Electro Harmonix 45,000 is the name of the multi-track looping recorder that I have,
Okay.
and it's in essence a combination of a 4-track digital recorder and a loop machine.
Hmm.
It has a little 4-channel mixer on it, and 4 individual tracks, each one of which can loop. Uh, and then it just uses memory cards that stick in there. And so I bought a bunch of these memory cards, and you can fit 100 tracks on a memory card. And I believe I'm on my 5th one, so
Okay.
I've got 400 something uh, songs that I've just little snippets, and that's how I've been recording them recently.
Wow.
Is on the looper,
Hmm.
and then I do occasionally go back through and plug in one of my old memory cards and kind of cycle through what I did, and
Hmm.
if something's really striking me at that point, then I'll archive it onto my computer.
Sure.
So it's a little bit of a multi-step process.
Hmm.
But again, I'm completely fine if something slips away, and actually, it's more common for me to write a song and then set it aside and not think about it for a period of time. And when I do come back to it, I basically have to reteach myself
Hmm.
it. I have to rememorize the lyrics. I might have to learn the guitar part again.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So I'm not like I'm certainly not keeping all 1,000+ songs up in performance ready state.
No, no. Well, that's interesting that it's come up lately with Steam. But people have been we've been chatting about that from time to time with people, um, like what sort of material fits well into Steam it. And I think that I think the music postings in Steam it tend to be more, um, just like not a polished 3 week. Let's get this every track perfect performance, but more of a let's just play it today, see how it goes, play something, do your best at the time, and then maybe 2 weeks later you might take the same tune again, perhaps, and maybe do that one again. Maybe do this time with banjo instead of guitar, or maybe try a different arrangement or something. So it's always kind of works in progress and not looking for that perfect performance, but as good as it can be, authentic as it can be in the setting on that day, and then post. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it, rather than really refining it. Like you're saying, when these pieces, you have so much material that you've created. There's no way to keep it in performance ready state. I mean, you want to do as good a job as you can when you do perform it, of course. But I don't know. That's another discussion, I guess, is like the performance etiquette, like how people want to have their material when they're ready to perform it. That's another discussion. But
Yeah,
Carla, all this material that you have, you were saying that the stuff that's on the hard drives, it's hard to go back through it. Do you find that? How do you feel about not going back to this material? Are you okay with never revisiting some of this material again?
yeah. If I don't ever revisit it, I think that would be okay with me. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some future time in my life when when I'm an old man, hopefully, and just want to revisit some memories. I know
Mm-hmm.
that listening to songs that I've written in the past, it's one of the best ways to bring me back to a state of mind that
Mm-hmm.
I was in. So I'm guessing that there'll be a time when I do find more satisfaction in going back through them and maybe cataloging them, categorizing them. Who knows? If I don't do it, that's fine. But I want to keep them around because I want to give future me that opportunity if this is something I'm into in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an excellent chance that I'll have just kept making more and more
Yeah.
songs that entire
Yeah.
time, and
Sure.
I never will go back and listen to some of these. But
Yeah.
I still have I've still got tape recordings from when I had a tape 4-track
Hmm.
multi-track recorder in high school, and I don't even know if there will be a tape machine in this future hypothetical future, but I've kept these tapes, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would think that you'll find a tape machine. I was we last week we had Stick Champion on, and he's still recording a lot of stuff on cassette himself. He really likes that, and also in the scene that Stick Champion is in the UK, the garage punk scene. One of the main forms of distribution is cassette.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, he said he has a company over there that will run off like 50 cassettes for you for a certain amount of money, and it's very affordable. Yeah, so yeah, you never know. But Carl, we're talking so much about this fantastic material that you're doing and your output. Would you like to play us a song? I think it's a good point at this time to play us a tune. What do you think?
Sure, sure. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna. This is an example of this kind of newer folky style that I've been working on.
Okay.
I also come and go in waves of playing with a pick or finger picking, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the middle of a finger picking period mostly. So this is an example of my finger picking. I'm gonna take my headset off and set it in front of my guitar. Um, I give me a loud holler if something's not right because I won't have the speakers in my ear, but
No
I
problem.
can hear, you know, a tinny distant Bucky echo once I've got them set in front of me.
No problem.
So for the listeners out there, I just put a capo on the second fret of my guitar. This is a simple chord progression using the G, F, and C chord shapes, although they are raised up a whole step since I have the capo on the second fret. And I'm gonna, without further ado, play a short song called Mother Moon. Why don't you call me Mother Moon? Why don't you let me enter to light up the room? And I will be long gone before the dawn. Why don't you call me Mother Moon? And I will be long gone before the dawn. Yes, I will be long gone before the dawn. Why don't you call me Father Time? Pleased to meet you. I hope you don't mind. I'll take just a second of your precious time. I'll take just a second of your precious time. I'll take just a second of your precious time. I'll take just a second of your precious time. I'll take just a second of your precious time. Why don't you tell me how this all began? Keep on talking till you reach the end. And in the silences you will know that I'm your friend. And in the silences you will know that I'm your friend. And in the silences you will know that I'm your friend. And in the silences you will know that I'm your man. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Hey, yeah. I'll give you applause again now that you're back. Yahoo! Nice job, nice job. That was fantastic. What a beautiful song, Carl. That was gorgeous.
Oh, thank you very kindly. Uh, I think you should be able to hear what I mean about a bit of a more folk style, mellow finger picking, uh, kind of folky melody line. That's actually a song that I've got a nice harmony part that I can sing with myself, but I haven't. I unfortunately can't do that live, and
Yeah.
I didn't actually bring my pickup in here to hook my guitar up to the looper. So if I do any looping, it'll just be vocal.
Well, that was fantastic. I got to say, I mean, it was really beautiful, and like I'm here. I hear so much in there that I hear so much in there that is so um, like I can hear influences that you may have had in your lifetime. That you're saying your folk influences, and not only the folk influences in the music, but it's almost like the influences in the text as well. You're talking about Father Time and Mother Moon and these sorts of things. I it's nice. It's interesting to hear a songwriter's choice of text to use, and it's beautiful. And I have to ask you, like, where did you get the inspiration for the lyric in that song?
I try not to overthink things when the
Mm-hmm.
muse comes to visit me.
Sure. Yeah.
So typical songwriting, I have two main modes of songwriting. The first mode, which is not what I used for this song, is vocal first. So many times I'll have a melody line that I'm singing or whistling in my head, and that's how a song begins. In this case, this was a finger picking guitar part, and if I'm just sit down and pick up my guitar and open myself up to inspiration and get in the pocket, as I think I've heard you describe it,
Mm-hmm.
just basically let go and let whatever music wants to come out. When something starts sounding good and I really let myself sink into the rhythm, then I'll just open my mouth and let words come out, and I try not to overthink them. And the first few words that come out may not end up in the final edition of the song, but very often they do. And I just the first words that came out this time were, "Why don't you call me Mother Moon?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, that's beautiful, and it's an interesting thing to say from a male songwriter perspective, because you could take that lyric two ways. You could say that, okay, here's this guy, and he's asking Mother Moon to call me,
Mm-hmm.
or you could take it, and this is actually the way I intended this, as I am telling you to call me Mother Moon.
Sure.
And it's an interesting thing. I think obviously the moon has got such a feminine energy and is associated with the divine feminine. And I am a big believer that we all have, no matter your gender, your sexuality, we all have aspects of the divine feminine and the divine masculine inside of ourselves, and I like to celebrate that. And so once I came up with that first lyric, then the second verse was um, kind of speaking to something that in our folk tradition, as you said, is considered to be more masculine. For whatever reason, we call it father time.
Mm-hmm.
So I, I guess I kind of wanted to embody the feminine and the masculine, and then embody a good listener at the end, and throw the ball back in the court of the listener and say, now why don't you tell me the story, and I'll sit here. And I think that maybe the most powerful lyric in that song to me is just that, in the silences you'll know that I'm your friend. And I say that because I feel like when I'm really comfortable with somebody is when I don't feel like I need to plug every gap in the conversation with sound.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody is talking to you, that sometimes it's okay to just sit there in silence for a little bit. And if you're comfortable sitting there in silence with somebody, that's when you really know that you've got a good connection there.
Well, I
So
hope I hope that we have masses of silence on this interview here today. I hope the audience just has blanks.
yes, in this format, that may not be the best thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, Bucky, I have to. This brings up something that one of my favorite movies, and this is a funny and terrible movie. It's called Pootie Tang. I would not be surprised if you have not seen this
I
movie called
I haven't.
Pootie Tang.
No, haven't
But
seen it.
it's about a fictitious rap star who just speaks in nonsense in his own nonsense language. Just says words that don't make any sense. And at one point, he releases a song that is just silence, the whole track, and it just everybody goes crazy. It comes on the radio and it's just dead air, and you just see, and it cuts to all these people, all these places around the city as they're listening to this song, and it's dead air, and they're just rocking out. Pootie don't need no words, Pootie don't need no sound.
That's right. Oh, that's hilarious. That's good stuff. Well, John Gage did a piece. I think it was back in the '60s. He wrote a piece. I think it's 3:14, 3:12, something like that. But it's like 3 minutes and 14 seconds of silence. So it's a piano piece. So,
There you go.
yeah. Anyway, I've always been. I've always like I'm not I can play with the piano. I can't play it, but I can play with it. And so not being a piano player, I always wanted to put a piano piece of my own choice on the program. Like if I was doing a show myself, put on a piano piece, but then it would be that one. So then I mean,
You could handle that?
yes, I can handle that one. Yes.
Oh, I don't know, Bucky. You'd get up there and you'd end it at 3:10.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, missing. I go. Oh shoot! Oh sorry. Oh
What is
sorry,
this?
everybody. Oh, I should have practiced this more. I knew I should have practiced this morning. Oh, that's crazy.
no.
But well, it's. But you mentioned earlier, you made a really good point earlier that, it's funny. I don't mean to say you made a really good point as if you didn't make any other really good points, but you did make one really good point. One really good point I want to say was you said you don't want to overthink things, your own music, your own music making and your art making. I think that's really interesting. I find sometimes when I make my music, after I'm finished, I listen to it back and I sometimes go, oh, I didn't realize I had done that. I didn't hear that before. And then maybe what I meant to do there is maybe I was going after this kind of sound, or maybe this was something that I was trying to do. So I can look back and almost have a way as a third person to analyze what it was I did and saying maybe what the performer meant to do in this was to be playing this sort of thing. And I enjoy doing that because sometimes when I do play, I finish and I go, I have no idea what I just did. And, so when I have listened to the tape back, I can hear things in there that I might say, oh, that was really silly. Or that was really cool. I wonder where my head was then when I did that. Sometimes that happens, which I find really entertaining. But with yours there, like you're saying, your first words come to mind if you have a guitar part or something that you're working through, and as you improvise, something comes to you, you can put it out. Sometimes you may not even know where the spirit will take you. And I love that. I love doing that. Now, I'm not with lyrics. I can't do that with lyrics. I'm horrible at writing lyrics. But I was going to ask you about this as well. You are a very seasoned creator. Okay, so you've been at it a long time. And there's a lot of our listeners out there that are not as seasoned as you. And that giving into the creative moment that you do so well, could you have any advice on how maybe some of our listeners that are not as experienced as you, how can they get into this? How can they start channeling themselves, channeling their music, their writing, their lyric writing, their poetry? Got any thoughts on that? Any advice you can give people?
Sure. It's going to just be this terribly cliched thing to say, but it is to spend time doing it. And, of course, that's like the most pointless piece of advice to give somebody. Of course, they have to spend time doing something to do it. But what I mean by that is don't sit down with this expectation that you're going to write a song. Sit down with this expectation that you're going to spend some time playing guitar or piano or singing or whatever it is, and don't try to tell yourself that you need to write something. If what you're doing is just spending time with the music, even if you start out playing something by somebody else, you start out playing a simple chord progression that what you're looking for is, as you're playing, you're looking for these moments when you feel yourself slipping away from consciously controlling what you're playing, and it's almost like an out of body experience where you are playing along and then all of a sudden you realize, okay, I'm no longer directing this train, I'm along for the ride. And once you start feeling that, and this is the part that takes some practice, is learning to let go and go with that. And very often I will find that I've been playing for a while, and maybe the first 20 minutes I knew what I was playing and I was actively playing something, and then after a certain bit I'm just enjoying listening to the music that I'm playing, and I'm so in the moment of playing it that I'm really not necessarily consciously directing it anymore. And then all of a sudden I'll realize that I have arrived at somewhere completely different. I am now playing something that's brand new, a different rhythm, a different chord progression. Something happened in there, and I'm not even consciously aware of how we got there.
Hmm.
It's sort of like that scary thing that happens sometimes when you're driving and all of a sudden you realize that you haven't been paying attention to the road for a
Yeah,
while.
that's right.
But when you're playing music, you're not likely to kill anybody in the next lane, the
Yeah,
family in the SUV.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it's a
That's it.
safer thing to do in the music venue.
Yeah,
But I think that's maybe an analogy that will make what I'm saying make more sense to people, because presumably anybody who's been a driver has had those moments where all of a sudden you
sure.
realize, oh crap, I'm behind the wheel, but I have not been paying attention to what I've
Yeah.
been doing.
Well,
Um,
I think that a lot. I think there's a lot of situations where people have things. I think every single person has things in their life where they'll have those moments. Maybe it's when they're cooking. Maybe it's when they're driving. Maybe it's when they're jogging, or cutting wood, or I don't know what. Whatever everybody has things in their life where I'm sure that they can find themselves just drift away and get into that pocket. One of the things that I tell my students is to do what you're describing, to get into that zone, is to first, what they need to do. You need to have a I think you need to have a basic grasp of the skill, like the skill sets, like in the area you're working. Like, let's say if it's poetry, say, or writing in any way, you need to have basic writing skills. Now, I think 99% of the population these days has, basic writing skills where they could probably do that. So just drawing on those skills, you can get into that pocket because you've got those skills that you can just relax and rely upon. In music is a little different, where if you're saying, well, I'm just learning to play guitar, I know 3 chords, it may be a little difficult to get into that pocket with the guitar. But what I tell my students, my young students, is that the pocket can be within those 3 chords. So if you get like a solid grasp of those 3 chords, and you can change between the 3 chords, and you can do basic strumming, and you just start doing that. Don't worry about another chord. Don't worry about a wacky finger picking pattern or anything else that's outside of your skill set. Focus only on the skill set you have and explore that first, and really, really explore that first. So you're much more likely to fall into the pocket or get into the zone on something that you're very comfortable with. So if that's 3 chords, well, then do it with that. Don't worry
sure.
about that.
And Bucky, I think that's really wonderful advice, and probably better said than my rambling way of getting around to that point. And it's true, because at this point, I've been playing guitar for, gosh, 20. I don't want to say it like 20, holy cow. So 20, 25 years now
Yeah.
that I've
Wow.
been playing guitar. So uh, I am very comfortable playing guitar.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is exactly true. When I first started playing out, I remember very clearly I had learned an E minor chord, and I learned it's some variant of an A minor where you take the exact same finger positions and just drop them down. So you're on the second fret of the third and fourth strings. And I wrote a song just switching back and forth between these two.
Mm-hmm.
It was all I knew how to do, but I was just jamming on it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you don't. In this case, it was 2 chords.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They were about the 2 simplest chords that you can make. And I wrote in my memory, a very pretty song, and I performed it at a talent show,
Yeah.
and it was well received with
Yeah.
those 2 chords. And I knew nothing else, but I spent enough time just playing those 2 chords that my mind started to hear other things that could go over them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, you don't need to be a wizard on 6 strings to write a song on guitar or whatever your instrument might be.
Yeah.
And your advice of just getting really comfortable in something, and then to me, there's something about the repetition. Like, our brain, as you repeat something and repeat something, our brain just starts to crave something different, and your brain will start suggesting other things
Mm-hmm.
that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain will start saying, okay, well, this is pretty cool, but wouldn't it be cooler if there was this melody line over it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a process that you don't even have to be consciously in control of. It will just happen if you
Mm-hmm.
just repeat something over and over and over again. It's human nature that our brain will get a little stir crazy and will start to try to inject some variety into there.
Mm-hmm.
So just let your brain do its thing. The wonderful thing about music is that when you're listening or playing to music, every part of your brain is active. And if you look at the brain scan of somebody listening to music or playing to music, that's when you'll see every area of the brain lit up. And even people who have traumatic brain injury and different parts of their brain don't normally get engaged. Many times, music therapy is the only thing that will actually open up every part of your brain. So
Mm-hmm.
just keep that in mind and keep that in your back pocket, that you don't have to be consciously aware of how all this stuff works. Our brain is hardwired to do this, and the reason we like the way certain frequencies interact is because of mathematical reasons. We didn't just pick, the root and the fifth and the third
Mm-hmm.
and all these
Yeah.
different things. These express fundamental truths of the way the universe is and the way that energy vibrates. And you don't need to understand it, because your brain understands it at this subconscious level that is far deeper than any conscious understanding could be. So just sit back and let it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that is fascinating stuff, and it's you're really well put, really very well put. I'm with you 100% on that. I think that one of the things that people miss when trying to engage in the process you're talking about is the repetition, because I see so many younger musicians who want to do what you're saying, but they will play the part, for maybe a minute or 30 seconds, and then they go, I'm not getting it. I don't, I can't, but really give it 3 minutes, give it 4 minutes, give it 10 minutes. But if you're playing that part for so long, then after a while you begin to fall into that. Now, I've been really lucky. Back in the 90s, I spent a lot of time studying African drumming, and we would play pieces that were an hour long, and the repetition wasn't for an hour. So I would play a little part, a little simple, dun 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 dun, dun, it's like that. So I play that for an hour. That will be my part. So after an hour, after 5 minutes of playing it, you start to drift into some place. And after 15 minutes, you're in a complete meditative state. And after an hour, you don't know where you've been. So that the rhythm, and you say about how these harmonies and rhythms and different aspects of music that are hardwired into us. If you look at the rhythms that we find in a lot of the African, I'm saying West African because that's the material that I'm most comfortable with, but the West African drumming, the rhythms that we find in that, they are hardwired into every single person on this planet, because when you hear those rhythms, there's something about those that they're just right, and they connect. And if you sit on a rhythm for 45 seconds, and all of a sudden you'll find your brain will start engaging in a way that you probably never experienced. So I'm with you on that. And I think that a lot of people, when they're experimenting, and I'm going to go back now to how can our listeners maybe do some of the things that you're doing so naturally. And I think a lot of it is taking the time, letting yourself take the time to sit on a rhythm or sit on a guitar chord or sit on a pattern of some sort for an extended period of time in a quiet place. And then this, like you said, the muse will have, the spirit will speak to you in ways that you can't do in 30 seconds. You got to take some time. So
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And Bucky, I'm going to go a step farther, building on what you just said, and say not just these aren't just hardwired into every person. You could say that they're hardwired into every animal, but then you could go farther and say that these rhythms are literally hardwired into plants. It's been pretty well established at this point that different time signatures have different effects on plants, and that may just sound crazy, and I'm sure listeners have heard, you should play Mozart to your plants and they'll grow better, and you think, well, this is absolutely crazy. How could that possibly be true? But it is true. It's or at least it seems to be true.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm not going to disbelieve you because I believe everything you tell me, Carl. I told you before I was a Twitter at the beginning of this interview, and I still am. To have time to hear your thoughts, I'm smitten. So yes, I'd buy that. I don't know which time patterns would work for which plants though. I'm just thinking, you know.
Now, and I said at least it appears to be true because I'm a big believer that we need to keep in mind that science is not a religion, and that in fact every hypothesis that we hold true is likely to either be disproven or at least modified at some point in the
Hmm.
future, and that it's a continual process. And so just because it appears that this is what's going on doesn't mean that it's what's going on, but all signs point to that music and rhythm can actually have an effect on plants. And there's been some pretty well controlled studies that have demonstrated this. I'm not going to say that it's in the realm of like sacred truth, but that's because I you would be hard pressed to find a single thing that I would put into that realm. I do try to maintain a level of not disbelief, but a level of awareness that as much as I believe something, that there's still a chance it's not the way it
Hmm.
really is. And in
Sure.
fact, there may not be such a thing as quote unquote the way it really is.
Hmm.
I think that we all kind of create our own universes, and there may not be a single perfectly overlapping universe out there. You may not find another person who lives in the same universe that you do, and in fact, I think that that is actually pretty likely to be true. That we are all each in our own universe, and that's really the wonderful thing, is that we get to share our own universe with everybody else. And I wouldn't want everybody to be in the exact same universe and
Hmm.
everybody to see things the same way and to have the same reaction. So I do try to keep that in mind.
Well, Carl, speaking about that, I do find that when I'm engaged in music in that pocket or in that zone that you and I are talking about, boy, my mind goes somewhere else. You know, like I would venture to say that there's a lot going on when we're engaged in music that science can't explain. Not yet anyway,
Hmm.
because there's things that go on. I remember. Okay, so the perception of time. Okay, so I remember back when I was in the throes of studying African drumming, and I had this apartment downtown in St. John's, Newfoundland, and in a little room with very little heat, and I had no drums to practice on, but I had hardcover books, so I would practice on my books. That's what I'd use as my drums because I didn't have any drums to practice on. So there's a rhythm that I would play. It was a three pattern. So I would go, if I would go, I can't demonstrate it here, but like it was a pattern of three, but put over four. Anyway, fact the bottom line is I sat on the floor in front of my window in my apartment. And it was probably about maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I started to play this pattern for a little while now because I need to get it really internalized. So I started playing this simple pattern, and then I opened my eyes and it was pitch black. And an hour and a half had gone by, and I was still playing that pattern. And it was unbelievable to this moment today. I can't imagine how I had lost such track of time in that. It was that time was gone, erased. But I was sitting on the floor for that time, tapping out these rhythms on the book, the simple pattern repeated.
Yep, and I guarantee you that entire time your whole brain was engaged and active, and and that's really the wonderful thing, is that when you let go of the conscious control and you allow yourself to sink into this pocket, is that even though maybe you're not consciously directing this thing, that when you come out of it, you just feel so refreshed because because
Mm-hmm.
your whole brain was engaged. It,
Mm-hmm.
it is a meditation,
Sure.
and in fact, when you meditate without music, just the many meditation traditions in this world that try to get you into this state just through meditation, it takes a lot longer for people, I feel like, to attain that ability. But you
Mm-hmm.
can, you can get to this level of full brain engagement and of not being and of having quieted your mind and no longer chasing these surface thoughts. That's kind of the goal of meditation, is to bring the monkey mind under control and to slowly stop chasing these thoughts and to sink deeper into this place where your whole brain is engaged, and yet not under your not focusing on whatever top level thing that
Mm-hmm.
you're is in your day to day. the wonderful thing about music is that it gets us there quickly without any need for extensive meditation training. It's just like as we were talking about, it is hardwired into us, and
It is, yeah.
it's why people like to listen to music is it's that it just quickly gets you into that meditative state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, Carl, would you think that would be a good opportunity for us to hear some of you getting into meditative state here now with some more music?
Sure,
What do you think?
sure. Let's do one more guitar song here, and then
Okay, sure.
maybe for the next musical number we could do a vocal
Yeah,
loop.
sure thing.
Um, I kind of picked a few songs out last night that I thought I might want to play, and this one feels like the right fit. So this is a song called "Falling Wall," and there's a relatively complicated guitar part here, and I know that there's a saying in show business, never apologize, and so I'm not going to apologize, but I will say that this is an older song and I haven't practiced it, but it still feels like the right one to play, so I'm going to give it a try.
Perfect.
Turn around just for a minute and the wall falls down. You can't trust walls forever, they will rot out from the ground. Nails will bend, wood will splinter, and the rocks tumble down. And the stones tumble down now, and the rocks tumble down. You know better. You know how. Like a river, not a wall. You know better. You know how. Like a path, not a wall. Okay, I'm back.
You, I love it. I love it. I love it. Fantastic. That was such a cool song. That was very cool. That was.
Yeah, that felt right just because, I mean, the lyric about not being a wall is it's about opening yourself up. And I felt like that dovetailed in nicely with what we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah. But the guitar part too is just fantastic. It's beautiful stuff. I have trouble walking and chewing gum at the same time, so being able to play such a complicated guitar part and sing beautifully as well, holy cow, man, that was fantastic.
Well, thank you, sir. That's an interesting song because uh, I was sitting in my yard and the fence the fence was standing, and I was doing some yard work, and I turned around and the fence had fallen over. And so the, the first part about that, turn around just for a minute and the wall falls down, is
Yeah,
actually it was. I went inside, and that night I came up with that, and so it was actually a physical event that happened. But then, of course, I turned it into a metaphorical one,
that's
and the
great.
rest of the song lyrics are, not necessarily about the physical fence that just fell over in my yard.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good one. Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, that I was going to ask you where it came from, where the inspiration for the lyric came from, but that's great. There's so many great little things around us, that you can draw on. Like again, I'm for our listeners out there who are trying to would love to be able to do what you do so naturally. I think that we all have little things that happen around us every day that a beautiful song can be created from. The most pedestrian, mundane of things that are happening in our lives can be turned into a fantastic song. That's great. Carl, I get like that song sounds just so perfect. Okay, to me, it sounds just so perfect. So, how like there's an old saying about when we're creating a piece of art, some piece of art in some way. And the saying is, no great work of art is ever completed. It's just abandoned. Now, you produce a lot of material. You must, from time to time, just say, okay, I can probably do more with a particular song X. I could probably do more with this, but I'm just going to leave it and move on. What do you feel about that statement? No great work is ever completed, just abandoned.
I feel it is 100% true when it comes to my art. I could always keep working on a drawing or painting. I mean, I can just spend more and more time. And the problem with that is I've realized over the years that there have been many times where I wish I would have stopped at a certain stage, and instead I kept going and kept going and I kept going, and then I finally look at what I've ended up, and I've over cluttered it. And I'm thinking back to this previous stage, thinking, man, I really wish I could just roll this all back, and I had attained this nice, clean simplicity, and I had gotten across what I wanted to get across, and then I just tried to add more to it, and the whole thing kind of fell apart. So I definitely know what you're talking about as far as art goes. With music, it is much more common that I will just work on a song, and typically as soon as the muse hits me, I finish it in that evening. So maybe I'll start it in the course of the day, but then my most creative time is typically between about midnight and 3 in the morning, maybe 11:30 and 3 in the morning, and that's the time when I'm doing art and music, and that's also my time on Steemit. And it's always been this way with me. And interesting, my sister is here in town, and I was talking with her, and she's the exact same way. And I didn't really realize this previously, but she was telling me that's her creative time too. She likes to stay up till 2:30 or 3 a.m. writing. And so it's something that's hardwired into me. And so I'll have started a song earlier in the day, and then once it's the witching hour and I get to kind of really tap into my full creativity, I'll just geek out on it for a couple hours, and I almost always just finish it, and I just feel like I arrived at something that is finished and complete, and I hardly ever go back, and almost never. I don't want to say never, because I'm a kind of a big believer in never say never, but I very rarely come back and change a song once I've written it, and I very rarely spend more than one day writing it. And in fact, in almost every case, when I didn't finish a song the first day and then I try to come back into it later, it doesn't. I'm never satisfied. I never finish it. I've got a song. I've got a couple really beautiful chord progressions with fragmentary lyrics that I want to finish, but there's something about it, like coming back to it later isn't the same. And I very rarely end up with something I'm satisfied if I do that. So I pretty much just set it aside and trust that the next time the muse strikes me, I will actually something fully crystallized will emerge.
Yeah, Stravinsky said that. I think the way the quote goes is true creation comes from applying limitations to yourself, limiting yourself. And limitation may actually be saying, okay, no coming back to this. Like, it's whatever gets done in this time spot or this day, that's where it's got to end. Because maybe we talk about how music is hardwired into us, maybe the creative process in some ways is hardwired into us as well. We're trying to come back to a creative piece in another time period, like at the next day or the next week. We just can't get back to that place.
Yeah, I think there's at least an element of truth to that.
Yeah. I think that a lot of the, like, when we hear artists like Stravinsky or yourself speak about the creative process, there's always got to be personal interpretation of what it is that comes out of somebody, because everybody's a little different, of course. But I think that there's always food for thought in these things. For me, when I came to Steam It, the very first day, I looked at everything that's going on, and I said, "Well, I'm going to experiment around and see what this is all about." And I posted some pictures and a little bit of writing and then a little music, and I thought, okay, then I kind of got my bearings, and I said, okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to only allow myself to do violin, and it's only going to be one takes, and it's only going to be single track, no guitar, no accompaniment, none of that, and there's not going to be any lyrics. So I've laid a whole load of restrictions on myself, forced myself to do these things, and a lot of times in some of my musical interpretations, especially the poetry ones, I've found it very challenging to express myself. But at the end, when I've actually completed the works, I've been more satisfied with the ones that have been really challenged to stay in the medium. I've been more satisfied with those than probably any others. But the reason why I chose to put the restriction on myself is because I knew that if I said, okay, well, I can put cello on this too. Oh, I can put a guitar track. Why don't I take this thing and do this and do that and do this and do that? And then before you know it, I don't know when to stop. And I'll have Pro Tools with 30 tracks, and I'm still not satisfied with it. What if I say, well, I only have the violin, so I have to make pieces of art that are going to be only with this medium and nothing else. And so you're not getting don't ask for a piano because you're not getting it. Don't ask for a drum set because you're not getting it. So work with what you have. And I found that very rewarding. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine a few nights ago about Steam It. He's not on Steam It, but he's a very creative person. And I said, I feel more alive with the restrictions I put on myself than I've ever in my career as a musician. I'm 47, so I've been kicking around music a long time. But I feel more alive creatively with these restrictions than I've ever. So, because when I roll out Pro Tools and I start laying down track after track after track, I never find myself really satisfied. But when I just take my violin and I say, okay, I've got to do an improvisation, or I got to create a piece that's going to represent maybe an oil painting. And so I'll take my time, I'll figure out where I want to go with it, and I'll figure out, I get a game plan, maybe do a couple of rough takes, and then say, okay, I'm ready. And then go. And at the end of it, I go, okay, I'm not allowed to do another take. So that's it. And so I walk away from it saying what it is what it is. So I can't say, yeah, but see, if I could lay drums over it, it would be even better. No, because that doesn't exist. It does not exist in my world for this piece. It doesn't exist. So as a creative person, those restrictions are really exciting for me. So I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of great points here, and I'm sure it also has meant that you have put a lot more music out there. I mean, if you were doing this other process that you're describing of
Sure.
taking the time to do all these tracks and perfect something, you might finish, if you're lucky, one in a week, maybe in several weeks, and in the meantime, you have put up 15 or 20 of these up doing it the other way.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a big believer in what you're describing as far as limiting the options and that being a great spur to creativity. I think it's one of the wonderful things about the various contests that are I mean, and there are many different contests. I'm not going to call any out except for one, but I don't want any other contest people to feel like I'm leaving you out. There are a lot of great contests, but the example I'm going to use here is Art Explosion, Julia K. Ponsford's wonderful contest, Art Explosion. And always has a theme for the week of what the art is supposed to deal with. And I've entered it a few times, and it's having that restriction of, okay, I'm gonna make a piece of art and it has to be on this theme that I wouldn't necessarily have chosen myself, but something about that restriction really has unlocked the creative process, and I've come out with some really amazing pieces of art from that. And I'm just a big believer in general. I think it limits decision paralysis, because when you have every option at your fingertips, it can be really tough to decide which one. And you've got all these different effects banks and MIDI sampled sounds you can bring in, And if all you are have in front of you is just this one simple palette, you just have to pick up your brush and start painting. There's
Hmm.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no decisions to make. You just
Yeah.
start doing it, and
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And you can focus more on those those boiled down, those rendered off ideas. You can say, okay, I'm not going to be right. I'm not going to be doing clouds in this one because there's no clouds in this theme. So okay, and I'm not going to be using mixed media because there's not going to be any mixed media in this thing. So it's that limitation takes away all the like you're saying, the indecision. I love it. I love that. And I have to say as well, that is a fantastic contest. And I look at all the artists all the time that go in there, and I get a lot of artists that I collaborate with, visual artists and video based artists and things that I've worked with, that I've collaborated with. I get a lot from that contest because Julia finds a way to really bring out the best in people. So it's great stuff. I love it. It's really great stuff. I'm surprised every week about how much. I'm not surprised. I'm thrilled about how much great talent there is in Steemit. It's amazing.
Yeah, for it's actually not a very large community of people. I mean, depending on how you define active users, there's
Mm-hmm.
barely over 100,000 active users.
Mm-hmm.
The exact number will vary somewhat depending on if you're counting somebody as an active user if they're still upvoting, which
Mm-hmm.
could just be a bot, upvoting for them, or if you're counting people only as an active user who are posting. But
Mm-hmm.
a little over 100,000, certainly less than 200,000 active users. That's not a huge community
No.
for the number of
Yeah.
amazing talents that we have here. There's it has definitely brought out the best in people.
No, I want to mention a characterization that I've used when describing you, and it's Renaissance Man. Now I've used that to describe you, and I have another person as well on Steam that I've met that I would categorize as a Renaissance Man, but I'm going to leave that person nameless right now. But I I told you that I'm smitten by getting you on the show today because I think you're amazing, and and I think that you are the modern day Da Vinci. So, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about me saying that to you? I want to know. Give me your thoughts. You're the modern day Leonardo.
So, first and foremost, I'm not a big self promoter, but I think that there's some validity to what you're saying here. I'm a talented guy, and my talents run in many directions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually resisted very hard specializing in my life. I don't various times people have told me, you should focus on your music or you should focus on your art or you're so talented, why aren't you pursuing this? And I don't I don't want to see a future me that has pursued one of these things that I love to do and one of these talents that I see in myself to the point that I have excluded these other portions of myself because as much as I love music, I love art. And as much as I love art, I love geeking out in front of a computer staring at code. And I love many different things, and in fact we've been talking about more along the mental lines, but I'm actually a pretty accomplished physical athlete as well, and I'm a big believer that you have to keep body and mind in tune together. And I think that if you really want to grow as a person, you need to grow as a whole person, and you need to make sure that if you want your mind to be healthy and happy, your body has to be healthy and happy. And I kind of take this philosophy and I try to grow all of the different aspects of myself that I've identified as things that I enjoy doing and as talents. I try to grow them all at the same time, and I have kind of consciously resisted specialization. And my creative process tends to be that I'll geek out on something really hard for a week or two and attain a base level of proficiency in it, and then set it aside, and it sort of becomes another string in my bow. And at a later date I'll pull that out and use that talent in my next endeavor. But I don't feel like I need to keep up at it the entire time. It's just now it's become another one of these, another tool in my toolbox. And a good example of this is just recently, about a month ago or so, I went on a really extended period of playing around with this website called the Deep Dream Generator,
Oh yes, yeah, I remember you mentioned
which
that.
yes. So it's amazing, and it
Mm-hmm.
basically what it does is you take an artificial intelligence, a neural network, and you give it a picture as a base image, and you give it another picture, and you tell the neural network, here, learn the style of this second image that I'm giving you, analyze it, you know, figure out how the colors are combined, figure out the contrast values, and then apply this style to the first image we've given you and recreate this first image in the style of the second image.
Mm.
And it's amazing the things you can do. You can apply, you know, like a on a real simple level, you could take like a picture of a lion, and then you could tell the neural network, here, analyze this picture of wire shavings and recreate this picture of the lion and make it look as if it was made out of wire shavings. And
Wow.
I've done that, and it looked amazing. But the point I'm making here is that I geeked out on this extremely hard. I mean, you know, my as I said, my creative time is between midnight and 3 in the morning or so, and I actually probably had many nights where I went midnight to 4, and I did that for a couple weeks solid of just running through different iterations of different base images, different style images, really getting
Mm-hmm.
a feel for all the different settings I could tweak.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of set it aside, but at this point now it's another tool. So that when I go to do another piece of art in a completely different medium, if I'm like, you know what, I would love to be able to get this to look like it had a metal texture, now I no longer have to go and try to recreate that myself in Photoshop with paint. I can take this piece of art that I'm working and just run it through the deep dream generator and apply this texture and then keep working on it in this other medium. So it's just become a new tool. And I try to do that, you know, musically. I'm always trying to add new things. The thing I've been doing for the last couple years that was new is this vocal looper, and that's just been really really awesome. But in every aspect of my life, I try to pick up a new skill, attain a degree of proficiency with it, and then use that going forward to inform everything else that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And a good example would be I just did a deep dive into SQL. SQL is a database language,
Mm-hmm.
and had never worked with SQL up till about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that there was a version of the Steam database that had been mirrored as a SQL database and was publicly accessible. And so I knew if I could teach myself SQL, I would be able to query the Steam SQL database, is what it's called, and I would be able to pull up information about the blockchain that was just not available to me in any other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a deep dive into SQL. I taught myself how to do it, and I've got a decent degree of proficiency with it now. And now it's another tool that I can use when I'm interacting with Steemit, and it has broadened my experience here tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the website itself is it's a beta website. There's a lot of functionality lacking. Let's be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that in an accusatory or complaining manner. Just a statement of fact that simple things like an advanced search functionality is completely missing.
Mm-hmm.
And learning SQL has allowed me to, in essence, have my own truly customizable advanced search with filters at my fingertips, and even beyond what you would normally see as, you know, even a website that does have a good advanced search, I can do things with SQL that you couldn't do. So I guess this is kind of a rambling way to say I'll accept your compliment and say that I see where it's coming from, and that I do try to pick up new skills and not stagnate, and really my modus operandi is just to dive into a new thing and then on to the next.
Yeah, I think that if we had Leonardo da Vinci on on Steemit and here today to talk with us, he'd probably give a very very similar answer to you. I think he would. He would say the same thing. Well, you know, I like architecture, so I studied drawing to improve my architecture, and then, you know, I figured I would study some law because law would help me understand architecture better, and then architecture would help me understand music, and oh yeah, whatever. It's I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. I think that if you don't mind me giving you like some I know you're not very self-promoting type of nature, and I think that's admirable. So I'm going to do it for you. You're a great guy. It's amazing what you do. It's truly amazing. I think that you're a rare breed, and the world would be such a wonderful place if we had more minds like yours kicking around. So I'm going to be your self-promotion. So there you go. Um,
Um,
but I was going to say as well. Would you mind telling us what got you into SQL? Could you tell us where that has brought you? I know you said it's for searching, but can you maybe be a bit more specific onto it got you in, what brought you there?
Sure. And so, this being an MSP radio show, this is actually a perfect chance for me to kind of say to all my friends there on PAL on the Discord chat,
Mm-hmm.
sort of an explanation for why I've been absent from there, because I used to spend an awful lot more time on PAL, and I think I'm level 19 or some nonsense. It counts your server activity and gives
Mm-hmm.
you a level.
Yeah.
But I have hardly been on there for the last month and last 5 weeks, and it this dovetails in with why I started learning SQL. I got into curating for Curie,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure most of our listeners will at least be vaguely aware of Curie, but for anybody who is not, it's an organization here on Steemit that you could sort of think of as a proto welfare institution that is involved with redistribution of wealth, or basically addressing wealth inequality is one way to look at it. And basically what it is addressing is the fact that newer content creators who don't already have a network and haven't established themselves here might very well be creating really awesome content, but nobody's seeing it, and
Mm-hmm.
they can get frustrated
Sure.
and may drift away from the platform before anybody even realizes, hey, we had a gem here,
Yeah, that's right.
And you go back and you look at this guy's posting, and he hasn't posted in a month and a half, but man, what he posted was awesome. I really wish he would have stayed around.
Yeah.
Well, what Curie does is the Curie curators go and try to seek out these newer authors, and Curie has a series of guidelines, but the base one here that's most applicable is that it's authors between rep 27 and 52,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get to rep 52 relatively easily. It's not a particularly high bar, but it does take a little while to get up there. So it's a relatively wide net that Curie's casting here,
Mm-hmm.
and when a Curie curator finds this truly exceptional work by an author who maybe hasn't been that well established, they submit it, or I would submit it as a Curie curator, and then somebody who is a reviewer for Curie will review it. And if they agree it's exceptional and original work, not plagiarized, Curie gives a really big upvote. It's about 2.5 million Steam power total that they're voting with. Most of that's delegated,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't typically give out a 100% strength vote, but even a 17% or 18 or 20% vote is typically around a $60-$80 payout on a post.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a significant boost that we're given to these newer posters. And once I realized what Curie was doing, I like to help people out. It's really one of my favorite things to do in the world is to help people. And I thought, well, shoot, man, I would love to be one of these people that goes around hunting down awesome newer content
Mm-hmm.
creators
Yep.
and helping reward them and keeping them engaged in the platform. And so I got into doing this. I've been pretty good at it. I've been top curator the last 3 weeks now.
Okay.
Top curator doesn't mean I'm the top curator. It's just they have like a score, a curation score based on an algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a score higher than a certain point, you're considered a top curator.
Mm.
And I've attained that, so I've been doing well there. But to loop this all back to SQL, um, Curie, as I mentioned, has a series of guidelines. The author has to be between a certain rep. The post has to be no older than 24 hours, has to have less than $1 pending payout. And I was realizing when I was trying to find posts that fit this bill that I was sifting through just mountains
Yeah.
of posts
Sure.
that didn't fit these guidelines to
Mm-hmm.
find just the one or two that did.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, man, I'm a stay-at-home dad of two. Um, I time is my most precious commodity,
Sure.
and I give my time very freely here, and through a series of initiatives that I actually want to talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I didn't have the time to spend that it would have taken to succeed as a Curie curator if I was just using the search tools available to me here on
Sure.
Steemit.com.
Yeah.
So I needed to figure out a way to filter out these posts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I realized that SQL could help me. My first thing I tried to do with SQL, and the first query that I built was basically a query that filters out all the new posts and only shows me the ones that meet the base Curie guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So then I could just make the determination, well, what is exceptional, instead of having to first sift through all these posts to even find one that met the base criteria.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to go to um, the new link. You know, I don't know what you call new category. You know, just to try to find new things. And boy, it's soul sucking. You know,
Yeah,
to wade
it
through
is.
that.
And I think this will segue in nicely because I do want to talk about a few initiatives that I have going on at HumanBot and RBot.
Hmm.
And when you say it's soul sucking, part of that is that there is, unfortunately, just an awful lot of plagiarism, outright plagiarism, or just not, even if it's not plagiarized and maybe they've cited the article, but it's just kind of a summarization of a single article,
Hmm.
isn't adding anything to the discussion. It's not really original content. You have to sift through an awful lot of just junk to find the diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My soul's pretty strong. It wasn't necessarily soul sucking for me, but it was more that I just didn't have the time required.
Hmm.
Um, but I do want to just take a few minutes to talk about a couple initiatives I've started up, and these, or at least one of these, at HumanBot, is something I've had in the back of my mind the whole time I was on platform. But I wanted to wait until I had a little bit of a louder voice here and was a little better connected. I didn't feel like it was the kind of thing I could start up as a new Steemit author and have it immediately take off. And I didn't want to try to shepherd it along the way and lose steam on it,
Hmm.
if I can say that.
Yes,
So
sir.
I waited until I felt like I was a little bit established, and then once I became top curator, I felt that I finally had this platform or this voice that people were listening to me. uh, as you can imagine, when you represent an organization that is handing out these huge upvotes, all kinds of people all of a sudden are coming out of the woodworks to say, "Hey, buddy,
Yes,
why
sir.
don't you check out my post?" And
Yeah.
hey, I would love to be a curator.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I had this reach beyond the circle of friends that I'd already established, and I do also have a circle of friends um, that I love here, but I wanted to have a broader reach for these initiatives, and I feel like I do finally have that. So what HumanBot is about is doing some of these things that you see bots doing, but actually having a human do them.
Okay.
And there's a few different. The first thing I did with HumanBot is called the Curator Incubator and Link Drop, and it's for people who are wanting to get into curation. And it's a place that you can drop links, not your own links, but rather things that you think are good quality posts by authors that for whatever reason you feel is an undervalued post. I have opened this up to that anybody can drop that in the comments there, and then I've asked aspiring curators to go through and engage with the content that's been dropped there, determine for themselves if they think it's exceptional, if they think it's original, to leave positive comments if they do think so, and to not go around ripping something if they don't think it's positive.
Hmm.
uh, and we're coming up close to 200 comments on that thread, and it's not even a week old, this particular initiative. And
Wow.
people have dropped off just some amazing content, and there's been a lot of interactivity generated.
Hmm.
And so that's the first thing that HumanBot did. But what I'm most excited about is something that's been bugging me the whole time I've been here, is what happens with a post when that 7-day payout window is closed. And this post it's a phenomenal post,
Hmm.
but for whatever reason, people didn't see it. It closes with 24 cents payout,
Yeah.
and a month later, somebody finds it and it's like, "This post is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to upload it." But the payout window's closed.
Yes.
There's nothing that can be done, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure we anybody who's been on the platform could point to a post they've made that they would say, "This is an undervalued post.
Hmm.
This post should have made more than it did. I put a lot of time and energy into this.
Sure.
For whatever reason, it finished undervalued." Well, I believe I've come up with a really pretty simple and elegant way to bring posts back into the active payout period.
Hmm.
And this is an upcoming initiative to keep your eye out for the first HumanBot Steam It Wayback Machine post.
Okay.
And this should be coming up shortly. I've already started leaving comments where I see undervalued posts from the past, asking the post author, "Hey, I think this is an undervalued post. I would like to include this in an upcoming post of the HumanBot Steam It Wayback Machine."
Hmm.
And what these posts are going to be is a short synopsis of each of these past payout posts. I'm probably going to be including only posts that are at least a month old and older.
Hmm.
So it'll be a collection of maybe 4 or 5 posts that I feel are terrific, that were undervalued. It'll have a short synopsis of the post, a maybe an image or video, and a link to the post. But then the nice thing is, if you use the uh, Chain BB, as I believe the name of it, but it's a third party website.
Hmm.
that allows you to post Steam It posts,
Yeah.
they have a feature where you can split the post payout among other authors.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So it's amazing. You should actually know about this just as a musical collaborator, because I've seen this happen where multiple people are collaborating on a song, and maybe
Yeah.
one person does a version
Yeah.
that gets paid $1 and somebody else does a version that's 15, but it included something that the first person did.
Yeah.
So it might be nice if you're doing a collaboration to everybody when they make these posts in the first place, set it to everybody who's involved in the collaboration shares the payout from each of the posts. I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
I didn't know that's
Sidetracking,
possible. No, I didn't know it's possible.
sidetracking.
That'd be definitely useful. Okay, yeah, sure thing. I'll definitely check that out.
So my idea with these posts is that 100% of the post payout SBD and Steam portion is going to be split up amongst the authors of these past payout posts.
Okay.
So, super simple way
Yeah.
to say, hey, check this out. If you like these, upvote this post, and the authors are going to get a reward for
Right.
this past payout post.
Wow.
Really simple concept.
Yeah.
Really simple. But I think it's going to go over really, really well. And when I make these posts, I'll also open it up, drop me posts that you feel like are undervalued and past payout in the
Mm-hmm.
comments. And I'm guessing that it's going to take off. Like everybody knows some of these
Yeah.
posts that are out there,
Yeah.
and it's one of the limitations of the platform. But luckily, the platform allows us a way around it. So
Wow.
that's something I'm really excited about.
Wow. That
Um,
and it's a very elegant way of doing it too. It's very
right.
simple. Yeah. That's really cool. That is really that's really exciting. I was wondering about that myself because I see posts like every now and then I go out into Google and I'll do a search, Steam It, and then a topic, whatever I'm looking for, any specific thing, and I'll find a really good article that's like 6 months old, and I look at it and I go, oh, this is fantastic, and I'll make sure I upvote the person who posted it, and then I go, wait a second, no, there's no point, it's six
Yep.
months old.
Exactly. And I also see people that don't really fully understand and do still spend their upvotes on these posts that are past payout. And
Yeah.
if you're listening out there, don't do that. I mean, you leave a comment if you want to let the person know that the post is great. But
Mm-hmm.
when it's past payout, it's past payout, and all you're
Yeah.
doing is spending your voting power that could have been spent on something that's still in payout.
Yeah.
But so that's HumanBot. There's a few other initiatives that are coming too on HumanBot. The one thing I wanted to talk about there before I leave HumanBot is the Human Certified Original Works initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Bucky, you are going to be a part of this. I haven't finished your badge yet, but basically, as a curator, I'm already checking many Steam It pieces for plagiarism um, before I submit, a post for review. I do my best to determine that it is in fact original, and the Curie reviewers have a lot of experience in detecting plagiarism, and I would actually say that being able to tell if a post is plagiarized is one of the biggest skills that you need as a Curie curator. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
number one, be able to tell if something is exceptional, and then number two, you have to be able to ensure that it is actually the original
Sure.
work of the post author. And so I'm already spending a lot of time when I come across an exceptional post. I spend some time making sure that it's actually the work of the post author. And my idea was, if I'm already spending this time and I'm going into far more depth here than Cheetah or at Original Works do. I mean, they use a simple algorithm and check a couple websites. I'm saying that I go to great lengths to determine if this is original. I'll reverse image search images from the post. If I feel like there's a chance the post might have been translated from another language, I'll reverse translate it back to likely source languages and then search for plagiarism.
Mm.
I'll search for all kinds of things that I do. But I was already spending this time, so if I have determined that something is original and it's a great post, I wanted some way to say, hey, this has got the Carl Nash seal of approval here. Like, I am telling you that I have determined that this is original works.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came up with this idea of the human certified original works, and I made a badge for myself that says that. It
Mm-hmm.
says badge of originality, human certified original works, and it has my eyeball alien eyeball tentacle kind of sticking out of the middle of the badge, so that if
Yeah.
people run across it and they're familiar with my avatar,
Yeah.
which is a tentacle, like an eyeball and a tentacle, they'll say, "Oh, hey, this is a Carl Nash thing," and Carl Nash is saying this is original.
That's right.
And then I've invited other people to participate, and I'm running this as a very decentralized thing. I'm not telling people exactly how they have to use this badge. I'm
Mm-hmm.
only giving them out to somebody who I feel like is a good judge of whether or not something is original, who has some some area of expertise themselves that would enable them to make this determination.
Hmm.
Um, and so when people have come and asked me about it, I'll take a look at their blog and what the kind of things that they upvote are and make a quick determination. But once they've passed that stage and I've made them a badge and handed it out, I'm not telling people how to hand it out. I'm not telling them, any specifics. But what I am doing is making the badge customized to that person with their avatar, their color scheme, so that when they're putting it out there, somebody who knows them and what their area of specialty is will see the badge and will know something about it because of what they know about the person who's leaving it.
Hmm.
And I want this to be individualized. I don't want it to be something where I'm telling people the only way to use it. Some people may use this exclusively to say whether or not something's plagiarized. I'm using it in a step beyond that to go beyond just whether it's plagiarized. I'm only giving this out if I think it's actually original in the sense of the term original, meaning it contributes something.
Sure.
It's unique. It's it's not just not plagiarized. That's the very base level,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Like,
Yeah,
oh
exactly.
good, it's not plagiarized, but it's it's not really original.
Yeah.
So when I'm handing this badge out, I'm handing it out to things that I think are actually original. So if you see that badge out there and you see the alien eyeball, take a good close look at the post author because they passed my test. And I'm excited to see it spread, and I'm hoping more people will get involved with this. I'm
Yeah.
excited to get you on board. There's a Spectrum Econ is a guy who just got on board. He's a professor of economics. He posts these extremely detailed economic analysis posts. He reviews scientific papers for a peer reviewed journal, and mentioned that when we were talking about whether or not he should get on board with this.
Hmm.
To me, if you if you can review scientific
Yeah.
publications for a peer-reviewed journal, your opinion has some weight on these matters. And so if I'm cruising around and I see some article on economics or a related discipline, and then I see Spectrum Econ's badge underneath it, I'm not I'm gonna really give that author the benefit of the doubt. Like, I'm gonna say, wow, this guy has somebody who really knows this field has given him the seal of approval. I'm gonna check this guy out. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm hoping to see this go. And once I make you a badge, if I see you slapping this down
Yeah,
on
that's
some
right. Yeah.
music, I'm gonna be like, oh, I know Bucky Dirtle. I love Bucky Dirtle. I want to check this guy out because he got the Bucky Dirtle badge.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fun initiative.
Yeah, well, it's certainly is. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to getting started on that. There, from the music standpoint, I think there's a lot of great music out there that is. Some people are putting up music that's very derivative. While it is original, it's very derivative of other music that it's good that it's not it is original music they're doing, but when the question of pure originality sometimes that's questionable. Whereas there are some people out there that are making music that is very original. Like there's things like this is something that you really must listen to. That's an interesting one. I hadn't really thought about it until you were just explaining about that, not just being non-plagiarized, but actually being original thought in the text sense of things. The same can be applied to music. So that would be very interesting.
Yep.
The I was going to say as well. Did you have another bot you want to speak about?
Yes, I do. So
Okay.
so that's at HumanBot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other initiative that I just started up recently is called RBot, R-BOT, which RBot could be a play on the word robot, but it also can be our OUR bot,
Mm-hmm.
RBot. And RBot was born. I mentioned that I haven't been on PAL, the Minnow Support Project chat server, very often lately, but I popped on one night. I had just registered the HumanBot name and was excited about it. And I mentioned that, and RougeBot, who's one of my favorite people on there, RougeBot is a junior mod now for PAL, and he was a greeter at the time. And RougeBot says, "Hey, what about Arbot?" He just suggests the name, and something about it clicked, and I went and registered that name right away. And I came back and I said, "Hey, RougeBot." Okay, I showed him the screen that shows that I just registered Arbot, and I said, "Hey, do you want to joint post with me on this account?" And that was how it was kind of born. I shared the posting key with him, and we didn't know what we were going to be doing. I said, "Well, I'm going to be using this account to upvote what I consider to be undervalued, underpaid posts and underpaid authors without any rep requirements on it like Curie does. because I feel like you could be higher rep than 52, and especially if you got that way by a couple big upvotes, maybe you haven't actually established the network that is going to be required to have it be where every post you make gets a good reception.
Mm-hmm.
I see people with a higher rep all the time who make posts that finish with under $1 payout, and they're just great posts. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm upvoting undervalued content with Rbot, and I shared the posting key with Rougebot, and I've asked Rougebot to upvote MSP related things because I know he's extremely involved in the Minnow Support Project. MSP is a wonderful, wonderful organization. Obviously, I'm speaking here on MSP waves right now, uh, but I'm not just saying that because this is the radio show. I really believe it's one of the best communities out there, and I personally didn't really get fully engaged in Steemit and in this community until I poked my head into PAL and
Mm-hmm.
started making friends there.
Same here.
Um, so absolutely wonderful, and I know that since I'm not myself as engaged in this community anymore, just out of necessity, just because I'm spending so much time doing the curation, and I'm spending so much time engaging with new authors who are in that rep 27 to 52 band, that I'm really, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of neglecting some of my more established friends. But I feel like I'm still doing a good service doing this, sidetracking myself slightly here. But my point is, I feel really glad that I'm able to delegate Steam power to this Rbot account and know that Rougebot is using it to upvote MSP related things. So I feel like I'm still kind of have my fingers here in this community, and I'm still helping to support it. And then Rbot has kind of grown from there because I was thinking, well, shoot, this can be Rbot. There's really no harm in sharing a posting key with somebody. The worst thing that they can do is make a post. They can't really screw anything up on the account. So I've brought in some friends of mine who are also curators, and I've shared the posting key with them. There's a few of these secret agents out there, and I'm going to go ahead and out you as one of them, Bucky.
Yes, yes, yeah.
I've shared the posting key for Rbot with you, and I've asked you, and I think you can attest to this. I really didn't give you a whole bunch of specific instructions beyond upvote what you feel is good, undervalued content,
Yeah.
and I trust you. And here you go. Have fun. Upvote as much or as little as you want, and it's a decentralized project in that sense. I really am not controlling or closely monitoring everything that other people are upvoting. I've been very happy with it when I see upvotes coming in. I've checked them out, and there's great posts.
Mm-hmm.
But I've really specifically tried not to over manage this,
Mm-hmm.
and I have shared this at this point now with 4 other curators. There's a couple curators. There's a curator for another curation service. There's yourself. So Rbot has got a lot of eyes out there looking, and what I want to use this platform here, this radio show, is for a bit of a shameless plug. I would strongly suggest, if you're into the idea of helping new undervalued authors and you're into the idea of helping MSP, consider either delegating a little bit of Steam power to Rbot, or if delegation isn't right for you, consider just following the Rbot vote. I've set up a vote trail. I'm not a big fan of Streamian, so I'm using a service called Steam Auto. It's
Mm-hmm.
all one word,
Okay.
Steam Auto, steamauto.com. One of the great things about Steam Auto is even though it asks for an email when you're signing up, it does not send you a confirmation email. You don't have to go to your email and confirm the account setup, which is a process that Streamian does. And I've actually known many people who have put in the wrong email or had a mistake in the email when they signed up for Streamian, and then were basically just locked out because they could not confirm it, and have had to just create a whole nother account to use Streamian because of this happening.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not. Streamian is probably a great site, and I'm certainly not trying to offend anybody who uses it. Just sharing my own personal experience that Steam Auto is a much, much simpler, more streamlined, and more reliable service. It has not gone down the entire time I'm using it,
Mm-hmm.
and that was not my experience with Streamian.
Okay.
So consider following Rbot on the steamauto.com website, and if you do that, your vote will come along behind Rbot, and you'll be helping to support MSP activity. You'll be helping to support newer undervalued authors as turned up by a team of 4 experienced curators and myself. And then the last thing that Rbot does is has a mission to support good comments and good commenters. And there will be some posting coming up shortly about that. I've already been going around upvoting what I think are good comments that really added to the post and were relevant and generated some good interaction. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel that commenting is something that I wish was more rewarded here. I
Mm-hmm.
almost feel like there's a need, and this is kind of where I'm going with this, is that I almost feel like there's a need for a Curie-like organization that curates good comments and
Mm-hmm.
rewards them to incentivize this. Because if you look at good content creators who are newer, they don't get any comments. even something that gets a Curie upvote and finishes with an $80 payout will have no comments. And there's a real dearth of interactivity and good commenting. You'll see it when people are more established and have got this bigger network that, then you'll see comment threads happening. But when you're just starting off out here, it is really hard to get somebody to give you a good, honest comment that's relevant and isn't just saying, "Hey, great post, I upvoted it, follow me."
That's right.
Follow for follow spam.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that if people start seeing these, and I do leave a comment when I upvote somebody, and I say
Hmm.
something along the lines of, "Hey, I think this is a great comment. I think it's a great comment because of these reasons. These are
Hmm.
not form comments I'm leaving."
Yeah.
And then I ask, "Hey, would you give me permission to quote from this comment and use it as an example of good commenting in a future RBot good comment initiative post?"
Hmm.
So I've already been leaving these comments out there and getting people's permission, and I'll start posting some posts, and it'll be the same idea as the Steam at Wayback Machine, where 100% of the post payouts will be distributed to these good commenters.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that it helps kind of incentivize people and gives just like a little idea of like, oh, you know what? He's right. We need to have more good commenters out here, and we need to reward these. So if you want to support good commenters, that's just another reason to support our bot. So and
Hmm.
end of the shameless plug there, but I think these both of these bots, and I use the term bot loosely because there's nothing bot about them
Hmm.
besides that they are doing some functions that would be done by a bot by some other people. I
Hmm.
think both of these are really doing some good here in the community, and I
Yeah.
wanted to get the word out.
Well, I appreciate that. It really is good work. I mean, it's fantastic, and I'm it's you're an inspiration because this such good work you're doing, and I think anybody that's listening would agree that all this work you're doing and how much time it takes to curate and to help these younger Steamians and with their their own self actualization. It's a noble effort, I have to say, and you're an inspiration. So thank you for being that person you are. That's fantastic. And if I would also go and say again, let me just repeat it. Uh, if you're a person out there who would like to delegate some Steam, if you have any way to support, whether you can delegate Steam or you maybe you do have good comments, good postings that you think maybe that you found by other people or yourself that are undervalued, make sure you connect and make Carl aware of it. And if you do have Steam that you think might be you can put it to good use, then please do that. I know there are some Steamians out there that have like a wild amounts of Steam that are just sitting there. So if you want to put it to good use, I can personally attest to the integrity of Mr. Nash and his efforts. So do it. So that's great. That's really exciting stuff. Very, very exciting. On the commenting thing, I love going around commenting. I don't get to do as much of it now, but over the summer when I had more free time, I used to love going and reading people's posts and then being able to comment on it. And I would sometimes write paragraphs, paragraphs and paragraphs in these comments, just give my own thoughts and reflecting on what they wrote. And I love doing that stuff. I really enjoy it. I kind of see it I mean, this is pretty obvious, I suppose, but I see it as a parallel activity where I do a lot of authoring, my own stuff, but the commenting is something that I have to engage in as a separate sort of activity because I have to say, okay, I'm going to do some commenting now, and I have to forget my own authoring. I have to do some commenting, so then I have to set aside time to go around and curate and comment. But I enjoy that. I really do. I find it really rewarding.
Yeah, I give good comment myself, and
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of times I've had somebody respond, like, wow, that thank you so much for this comment. This means so much to me. It
Yeah.
means more to me than I can tell you, and I know it to be true because I'm the same way. I would almost rather have a couple really good, thoughtful comments that advance the discussion than I would a big post payout.
Hmm.
I'm not going to turn down the big post payout, but
No.
as far as what gets me more excited,
Yeah.
I love it when somebody else really engages and proves to me that I made a connection that that I sparked something in them, and then they throw the ball back in my court, and something in the comment, you know, fuels my own creative process. That to me, that's where the real magic happens, and I just want to help incentivize that in any way
Yeah.
that I can, and just getting it on people's minds, just rewarding it. I mean, for good reason, people typically spend their Steam power on posts. It's the only way really you're going to get curation rewards. You're not going to get a
Mhm.
curation reward for upvoting a comment
Mhm.
in most cases, unless somebody comes along behind you and really upvotes it. Uh, but to me, it goes along with something else that I've thought for a long time, which is that Steemit is not a blogging platform.
Mhm.
Now, I say this because, I'm sure some listeners are saying, "What the heck are you talking about? Of course it's a blogging platform." Well, you can blog on Steemit. So I'm not denying that you can use it as a blogging platform. I do not feel that Steemit is exclusively a blogging platform, nor do I
Mhm.
even feel that blogging is what it's best suited for. I feel
Mhm.
that there are some real limitations to the way the blockchain works that are necessitated by the 7-day payout window and
Mhm.
not being able to edit a post after 7 days that don't actually work particularly well with blogging.
Mhm.
Uh, in any other blogging platform, you're going to be able to go back in and add links to posts that are
Yeah.
older than a week
Yeah.
so that you can cross link
Mhm.
your new posting with your old posting. And if you come up with something that relates,
Yeah.
you want to be able to connect these things. You can't do
Yeah.
that on Steemit. There are many examples of ways that Steemit is not necessarily ideally suited for blogging,
Mhm.
but people are using it as a blogging platform. And I'm not, again, not saying you can't or shouldn't, but Steemit is so much more than that. It is
Mhm.
very much a social media network,
Mhm.
and if all we have is content creators that who are spending all their time making content, but we don't have readers, and we don't have engaged readers, and we don't have people that are interacting with the comment and commenting, then we've got kind of a dead desert ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, we need good readers just as much as we need good content creators. And you hear
Mhm.
people calling for, we need more original content creators all the time, but you very rarely hear people say, we need more good readers, we
Mhm.
need more good commenters. And
Mhm.
that's I'm all for original content creators, and I don't want anything I just said to be misconstrued.
Mhm.
But I'm saying on top of that, Steemit is more than a blogging platform, and we need more than content creators. We need good human interaction, and that's what I'm trying to promote.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It certainly does. I'm with you on that. Carl, the I would love to hear you play something else. I we have like maybe 3 minutes.
Sure.
So
So,
what do you
and
think?
you can hopefully edit down some of that other nonsense too. I'm sure
The,
not everything here was gold,
this
but
is a this is no nonsense interview, Carl. No nonsense interview.
so let me just I'm gonna try an improvised song on the looper here. So
Sure.
this is gonna be I do not know what I'm about to sing here. Bucky, what is the name of this show? The official name?
It's backstage with Bucky.
Backstage with Bucky.
I don't know. I don't know where
Okay,
this
so
is going.
we're gonna I'm gonna play you a song that does not exist yet, but I know
Okay.
its name. The
Okay.
name of the song is Backstage with Bucky.
Okay.
So 1 second, I'm gonna put my mic on the ground here. I'm gonna be setting up my looper,
Okay.
and this will be an a cappella number. I'll sing harmonies with myself and see if we can't get a Backstage with Bucky song going on
Okay.
to close us out. Okay, 1 sec here. On the air with Bucky Turtle, yeah. On the MSC waves. Backstage with Bucky Turtle now. Let creativity flow. Peace, love, and liberty. Peace, love, and liberty. Peace, love, and liberty. Oh, that's how I want to live. Peace, love, and liberty. Oh, that's how I want to live. Peace, love, and liberty. liberty. Oh, that's how I want to live. Peace, love, and liberty. Okay.
Yoo-hoo!
Well, that may not have been my finest work ever, but that's what happens when you go live with no safety.
That was fantastic. I love it. I love it. I got pains in my face from laughing so much while I was listening to you. That was hilariously excellent. I love it. That was crazy good. You are so talented. It's sickening. It's fantastic. Oh, well, good. Well, Carl, listen, Carl, I really appreciate you coming on with us today and sharing your thoughts on all the things you do. You're the Renaissance man of Steam It. So thank you very much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. This has been Bucky Dirtle, Bucky Backstage with Bucky, and we have our very special guest here today, Carl Nash. Be sure to go check out all of his bots and check out all of his music, all of his artwork. Go check out his blog, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks for having me. This was a true pleasure. Thanks again.
Woohoo! Wasn't that fantastic? This is live again now. That was, I mean, holy cow, he is so talented. I was telling people since Saturday, anybody that would listen to me on Discord, I would say, I did this interview with Carl, and he's just, it was crazy. He's just so smart. It was awesome. Yeah, he's just fantastic. I mean, like that, the pieces that he did then, I mean, they were all great stuff, right? And then, like, just live. And that last one, making it up with the looper, that is hilarious. That was fantastic. Excellent. Yeah, and if you should check out some of his other music that he's got up there. I know he did one a while back with the looper, vocal stuff, and I was listening to it going, this is mental. Yeah, crazy. Very, very cool. Yeah, kind of makes you want to burn your instrument, you know, when you, it kind of makes you want to blow up my fiddle when I hear people talented like that. Oh my. Yeah, well, listen, there's so many messages in there. Thanks, Phil. There's so many messages in there. In that whole thing, for me to recap would be so difficult. But I will say, go to Carl's blog at the very least, and just start working your way backwards, because you'll see all the things that he's been doing and his work with Curie, the bots. You know, he's a real philanthropist, to say the least. You know, and he's so giving with his time too. I mean, anytime I ever, like Cream just mentioned about contacting him from time to time and feeling bad for contacting him. But, you know, you'll always get a nice, happy response, even if he is really busy. And anytime I've asked Carl for something, he just comes back with, like, over-delivery. So he's a great guy. And I've been drinking to him the whole time, drinking that port, Stick Champion-inspired port. I should also mention too, go check out Stick's stuff about Portugal. He had got some great posts. Also mention that there's I put a new document in the music chat room channel. So hey, thanks, Julia. I put I didn't put in a document in there. What I did was Stick has a document in there that you should all have a look at. And it lists all the musicians that are kicking around in here. And it has, you can put your name on the list, say what you do, what your interests are, what your levels are, that kind of thing. And you may see some people that may be on the same page as you, like interest-wise. Maybe they're into reggae, and you're looking for somebody to be into reggae. So go have a look at that list. And I also put a sheet on that spreadsheet that has a list of things that, like music that if you're putting up that you want people to collaborate with, you know, so you're putting things up, you know, and like Stick has done some stuff in the past, and I put up a little one a little while ago to a little hand drum part, and I mentioned at the beginning of the time there was another musician that posted it. That he took it and did another drum and bass part over it. Really, really good. I got to say, he did a fantastic job. Dimitri J. So you might want to check out Dimitri J and see what he's done with that. So good collaboration there. If you know any other musicians too, I encourage you to send them to the channel, and so we can collaborate. You know, get them on the same page as everybody in here, and you never know. You never know what's going to come out of it. So it's all good stuff. Yeah. And I don't know if Carl's interested in letting any of the music he did today go out to the public, but if he wants to, he can let me know, and I'll see what I can do about getting it to him to release. But yeah, the collab sheet, I see stickers writing out. I'm a bit of a delay with you guys because with the sound here, but I see stickers writing about the collab stuff. So yeah, check the sheet out for sure. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I was going to mention to you today. There's a few little announcements like that I wanted to say. Another thing too I saw, and he mentioned it earlier, was Carl did. The Chain BB has an option where you can split the payouts. So if you're collaborating with someone, you can say, okay, this is a collaboration between, Ron and myself and Krim. So we can say, okay, 30%, 33 and a third, 33 and a third, 33 and a third, or whatever you're going to do. So that's a really cool way to make it work. I think they take a little piece. Like maybe even 15%. I think maybe somebody can validate that, but it's probably worth it. Okay, we're nearing the end. I play a tune. I'm going to play a tune. It's a good old Irish tune. This is Geese in the Bog, and I'm going to play you out. You guys have a great evening. Thanks, and thank you, Carl. Thank you very much, and thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you.